last week. Hi, everybody. It's the Overcast. Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome back, John Hayden.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Happy recent birthday, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Woo.
Yes, indeed.
All right. We're talking tonight about Loki. And I will say that the non-spoiler section is going to be very brief. So we'll try to do that quick. And then we're going to get away from that and go into spoilers. So, without further ado, let's talk about Loki.
We protect the proper flow of time. You picked up the Tesseract, breaking reality. I want you to help us fix it.
Why me?
I need your unique Loki perspective.
Do I get a weapon?
Nah.
You really believe in this Loki variant?
Luckily, he believes in himself enough for the both of us.
Why? It is adorable that you think you could possibly manipulate me. I'm 10 steps ahead of you.
So this was the third now series on Disney Plus from Marvel. So people are excited about it, and it had 6 episodes. It recently wrapped up, so we want to talk about it. This is created, by the way, by Michael Waldron, who previously was known for Rick and Morty, I think it was before this, which is funny considering all the time travel and jokes related to time travel. The director of all 6 episodes is Kate Herron. The show starring Tom Hiddleston, Gugu Mbatha Raw, Wunmi Masaku, Eugene Cordero, Tara Strong, Owen Wilson, and Sophia De Martino. I would read the rest of the cast, but I don't want to give anything away if anyone has not watched it. So we'll stop it there. It's, I guess, worth noting from a production standpoint, maybe that the executive producers of this are Kevin Feige, Louis D'Esposito, Victoria Alonso, Stephen Broussard, and Tom Hiddleston actually has a producing credit here. Kate Herron does, and so does Michael Waldron. So the chief creative team for this show are the star, the director, the writer, or the showrunner, and all the producers that produce all the other Marvel films. So it's not like a weird let's get this random person. It's everyone who makes big decisions is doing this stuff. And it's also worth noting that this was shot, it appears entirely in Atlanta at Pinewood.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's cool too. So
I think WandaVision was as well.
Mm-hmm.
Entirely. Okay. Yeah. Loki essentially picks up after the events of Avengers Endgame, which is the last time we saw the Loki character in the movies. Was he grabs the Tesseract, he disappears from 2012, and we just go, oh, that's funny. And this will be resolved later when Captain America gives the Infinity Stones back. And of course, everyone at the time, especially Tom Hiddleston, even didn't know that anything was going to come of that. Then when they shot that scene, it was he just escapes, and that's a fun thing for him to escape. So this series actually picks up on that, and he's very quickly apprehended by the Time Variance Authority, which is this big bureaucratic entity that governs time and stops alternate timelines from forming, such as the one that briefly formed when he escaped the Prime timeline with the Tesseract and escaped the Avengers custody. And they quickly grab him, do what's called pruning the timeline, which is where they put a thing down and they just stop the timeline from happening in the first place. And then they take the offending variant, in this case, the alternate version of Loki, to the TVA to receive judgment. And in the course of this, Owen Wilson's character Mobius decides that they need his help to solve murders that have been happening to other TVA agents. So that's how the show starts. It is not how it ends, but that is the premise of the show. And then it goes off in other directions. So like I was saying, I give this show 4 stars. I think it's really entertaining episode to episode, especially when, this is one of those shows where an episode ends and then you realize what we've been doing up to now, we're not going to be doing anymore. Now we're going to do something else. And then like an episode later, it'll do that again. And every episode is like not self-contained, but it's very much like, hope you enjoyed this. Next week, we're doing something different. See you then.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it gives a lot of time to its characters. It delivers on action beats, and it really introduces what I thought was a really cool story world with the TVA and the timekeepers and how all that's supposed to work. It sets up future events for the MCU, and anything else I have is going to wait for spoilers. But I would say that if you're a fan of the MCU and for some reason you haven't seen the show right now, I don't know why, you shouldn't skip it. Anyway, that's my feelings about it. Dustin?
So I'm also going to give it 4 stars. I enjoyed the ride and found myself looking forward to each episode. And granted, I also did that for the other shows, but I felt like the other shows eventually kind of fell apart in the end.
Yeah.
They either betrayed their own premise or just kind of went in a direction that it was just okay for me. Loki was the first show that I feel like ends as strongly as it began. And so for me, that was what sealed the deal. Because it's one thing to make me want to see the next episode. It's another thing to make me look back on the experience and feel like my time has been well spent. And I think that's what they did here. I have to give a big shout out to Tom Hiddleston, who does a really great job, particularly in the first episode, of kind of coming to terms with what his new life is and what his old life would have become. And I think that was a really great, weird thing to probably perform, but he did a really great job with it. All of the actors here are great. Owen Wilson is fantastic. Sophia DiMartino is, maybe the standout. I really enjoyed that character. I don't want to say that she overshadows Loki at any point, but I really enjoyed that character. And everybody else is equally as strong. The writing is smart and has some really clever twists on like time travel and time shenanigans. And I thought it was just an interesting approach to the way that things are kind of governed in the MCU. And of course, I've seen people who just quite don't understand it, who are saying things like, well, where was the TVA when Thanos attacked? They could have helped. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, the writers wrote the most brilliant thing ever, which is, it was supposed to happen the way that it happened, so he didn't intervene because it was supposed to happen that way.
Right.
And like,
to not disturb the sacred timeline.
Yeah, that's the most brilliant thing they could have done, because otherwise you are going to have people saying, well, where were they when this? Yeah. And it's like, but it was supposed to happen, so that's how it happened.
They could have saved a lot of lives. Yeah,
and it's like, well, maybe they did. Maybe the other timelines would have been worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I enjoyed just the writing and the way that it unfolded as a story. I've seen this complaint leveled against it, which is it's a little bit like Peter Jackson's The Hobbit, where as the story goes along, it loses the story for The Hobbit, or in this case, Loki. The story becomes bigger than Loki to the point where Loki isn't really much of a player in it. I never got that impression. I kind of remained on Loki's side and through his eyes throughout. And I think that the only reason I bring that up is because I've seen a lot of people say that, like, well, I felt like Loki got the short end of the stick by the end of it. And I'm like, I don't feel that way at all. For me, it very much was a Loki story, and the arc that Loki goes through is important to him as a character. So I'm excited to see where we might see Loki next, and what his mental state might be. Where is he as a character? And so, obviously this leaves room for what's to come, like every Marvel movie does. So I'm just excited to see where this character goes next. And as somebody who at least has enjoyed, 2/3 of the Thor movies, I really do enjoy that character. And Loki was the best part of the Dark World. And so for me, that's what it's called, right? Dark World, dark elves universe, man. He was
Malekith was not your favorite part of that movie?
No,
man.
no, sir.
You missed out. We saw it differently.
But yeah, so I enjoyed it. I think as somebody who enjoys that character and enjoys the Thor, part of the MCU, that scratched an itch that needed to be scratched. So yeah, 4 stars.
Johnny.
I'd also give it 4 stars. I think when this was announced, this was the Disney Plus show along with Hawkeye that I wasn't super looking forward to, simply because I really liked the way that Loki's arc finished in Endgame, and I thought muddling that with showing an alternate version of that character would kind of take away from that ending that the character had. So I was apprehensive about that going in, but they do a very good job of setting up that this is a different Loki, and the things that are happening to him are separate from the larger Marvel universe, and this is taking that character on a different path. So they kind of remedied that situation for me fairly early on, and I kind of agree with Dustin that the other, particularly WandaVision, kind of fell apart for me towards the end. So this show was it was great because it was constant throughout. It didn't really have any lulls or low points. It was consistently good throughout, and it kind of stuck the landing in a way that the others didn't. So I also thought the performances were great. This probably had the best ensemble cast of any of the shows thus far. Each character had a really important part to play. And I thought the design of the show was particularly beautiful. The sets were really great. Yeah. The cinematography was great. The music was really fantastic. And it could vary from episode to episode. So each episode looked remarkably different depending on where they were. There was the TVA, and then there was Lamentus, and obviously the sets that you get into towards the end of the series that we'll wait for spoilers. But yeah, I just thought this was a very remarkable show from a visual standpoint, as well as what it did to the mold of the MCU timeline and storyline up to this point. So I really enjoyed it.
Well, I guess with that, we should probably head into spoilers. So we'll go to the break real quick. And when we come back from the break, when we emerge from this door in time to the spoiler section, you shouldn't be here unless you've seen the show. So if you haven't watched it, there's our recommendations. Stick around if you want to hear more. We're gonna break it down a little more scrutiny, I would say. I always say that like the first part of the show is more of just like the general, like here you dip your toe in, see what we think, but if you want to hear us really talk about it, you should watch it and come around for the spoilers. We'll be right back. We're back. So we're in the spoiler section talking about Loki. So Scram, if you haven't seen the show, you want no part of this. You want no part of this, dude.
We're gonna say some things, and it's gonna ruin everything.
So yeah. So speaking of ruining everything, so at the end of this series, the timeline is allowed to branch, and essentially the multiverse begins. I don't even know where to start, by the way, when it comes to spoilers. I guess, here's what I wrote down at least. Okay. So originally I had heard rumors that season 1 and 2 had been, so there's gonna be a second season. We find that out at the end of this. So that framed a lot of the problems I had with the show, because knowing that now there's gonna be another season, I was like, oh, well, then there's time. Like by the end of the series, I kind of was not disappointed, but I was a little bit like, oh, so this relationship doesn't pan out. This character makes this choice. And it just kind of felt like a real dour place to leave these characters, despite what the MCU overall needed the show to do. So when this is the first one that's confirmed to get another season. I mean, WandaVision's not going to get another season. Falcon and Winter Soldier probably could, but they haven't announced anything yet. I'm sure they're going to wait for some movies to happen before they figure out. But we know exactly like the where we're exploring Loki is in this series. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, but yeah, let's be honest though. I mean, had the story ended with season 1, it feels a little like it's not complete. Yeah. But really all that would take is maybe changing 1 or 2 scenes at the end to give you that feeling of completion. So imagine at the end, like Loki as is, he's pushed back to the TVA by Sylvie, and you know, he's got this like sad moment or whatever. Imagine instead when the multiverse like opens up, for whatever reason he disappears, right? Like he's not supposed to exist anymore or whatever, or at least not here, and so he goes away. Like that could be the end of the show. That you know, we start with this Loki, he has this emotional journey, and then he's just dead. And like, that's the end of it. He served the purpose, which was getting us to the multiverse war. And now he's done. And we know, you know, as viewers, like, oh, Loki was important because he got us to a place, but you know, it could have been the end. It honestly could have been his end, and it would have been okay still for me. But yeah, you're right. Knowing that, like, so when it was actually over and the credits started rolling, and before you see season 2's coming, yeah, there's a feeling of like, well, that can't be done. Like that can't be it. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it feels incomplete. It feels like there's more story to tell. And then it's like, oh yeah, that we know we're on this. And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, it sticks the landing because it tells you like, don't worry, there's more coming. Yeah, we'll get there. Where do you want to start with spoiler stuff? Because I mean, I could go anywhere with this, but I just, speaking of the ending itself, I really enjoyed the conclusion, especially now knowing there's another season. There's a appropriate cliffhanger for Loki to figure out like, okay, no one knows who I am. I'm clearly in another timeline. I'm in another timeline where one of these Kang characters is in charge, and you know, and it's clear that to me it seems like Sylvie put him somewhere sort of in case this is the wrong choice, I'm putting you somewhere that you could help. I don't know. I would think that it's not wherever she put him can't be a coincidence, because it's another timeline. It's not like it's their timeline. She didn't put him back at the TVA. She put him back at the TVA in a specific timeline. So I wonder if part of her was like, you got to go, but here's where you're going to be in case I'm about to fuck something up. And, you know, and then she does, and is ultimately consumed by her own need for revenge, and plunges the universe into this horrible spiraling time multiverse.
Did anyone else get Tim Burton Planet of the Apes vibes at the very end?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
I absolutely did.
But done better.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did y'all like? I was cool to see Jonathan Majors hit the end here, sort of introduce himself to the MCU, but not really fully introduce himself to. I think a lot of I read I didn't read any complaints myself, but I read a lot of reports of complaints about how much talking there is in this show, and how like the finale is mostly talking. Like, man, that's called acting, you know, it's called drama. And I mean, it's maybe a little bit different, but I mean, like the show didn't set up to be an expectation of a big, like in the fighting part of the finale, I was kind of like, don't fight, don't make this dumb. Cause all of this talking before this fighting was really cool. Like the best parts of the show to me, I think in the second episode, Owen Wilson and Loki are talking. I love how we don't call him Mobius. Owen Wilson and Loki are talking about essentially the nature of existence. And I'm just sitting there like loving it. Like, keep going.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. You see, it's like string theory, you know? But
ka-chow.
Ka-chow. And you're dead. That's it. You never existed. I thought the best parts of the show were dialogue, were speaking, were just letting actors go through pages, So I loved that this ending confrontation was really tame and nonviolent and just, here's my story. Here's what's going on. It's exposition, but because he's shooting so much scenery and he's so eccentric that you're just like, you're not bored by it. And you're left to wonder the whole time, is he, we know he's not misleading us, because otherwise this scene is a big waste of time. So, but by the end of it, she makes the choice and you still go, oh boy, this is going to get so much worse, isn't it? And he just sort of like dies laughing. Was he smiling when he died, or did he just say, see you soon?
I know he said see you soon.
He said see you soon. I don't think he like laughed. I wondered if he was smiling. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I thought the exposition dump, which is really what it is, was entertaining and well done. I mean, it's akin to, Charlie at the end of Willy Wonka getting exposition from Willy Wonka. It's like Dorothy getting exposition from the wizard. It's like this mystical person that we've quested to find. Well, it's going to be really lackluster if we don't get any information from him. Yeah. So on there, sure, complain about it all you want, but I'm just happy that they followed through on this. I mean, we all sat through Lost. We know what happens when you set up a quest and you get to find somebody with answers, and then you still don't get the stupid answers you wanted. Well, that's what this could have been. It could have been a much worse version where it's still a mystery, and you go into season 2 going, who was that guy? Like it literally could have been that. So I'm just glad that like they gave us all the answers, that he had a monologue explaining who he was, how he got there, what he does, what his goal is in bringing them there. And like all of this unravels over what I think is great dialogue and great storytelling, and essentially a little one-act play in a room that is incredibly interesting. And when they start fighting, the reason why that feels different than like WandaVision, where like it starts as a like Dick Van Dyke sitcom and ends up with people floating and shooting energy blasts at each other, which can't be more different from the beginning and the end. Yeah. This fit because, I mean, the fighting was within the tone that was established, which is more cosmic and magical and whatever else. So it's fine. And at the same time, it's emotionally earned. Yep. So the emotion there between those two characters, we're already on board with that relationship, and we want them to, oh, come on, guys, you'd be so great together. Work it out, and it's like, we are invested in that relationship. So we side with Loki, who's blindsided and betrayed by this. We are too. Whereas with WandaVision, which I'm not going to turn this into a WandaVision review. We've already done that. But with WandaVision, you only have like an episode to get mad at Agatha. And so you don't really feel like that emotional connection there, like this is some big betrayal, because you never really got the impression that they were actually genuine friends or actually genuine whatever. Like it always felt like a manipulation. And so by the end of it, there's not an emotion there for them fighting. The emotion is I want to protect my kids and my dead husband. The emotion isn't this villain is it has betrayed me or whatever. And here, again, it's emotionally earned because we're in Loki's shoes, feeling what he's feeling when Sylvie does what she does. And so yeah, that didn't stick out to me. And again, I'm just glad that honestly, I'm just glad that there was something, because again, you could have just had no exposition and fighting. You could have had all exposition and no fighting. But as it is, we got like all the exposition we need and also some fighting. And so that's great.
Well, and I love that scene with Jonathan Majors at the end, because it really disarmed the audience. It was an exposition dump, but it was also like so weird in its tone and its atmosphere. You didn't really know who this guy was, whether you could trust him. He was acting really strange. I thought Jonathan Majors was great. It was like a big swing for that character, but it really worked for me. I don't know if the other versions of Kang that we'll see will be similar, but I assume to an extent they will be.
To an extent,
so sure. It like really helped sell. You're in this citadel at the end of the world. It's really strange, and here's this eccentric guy that lives alone in it, essentially, and it differentiated it from WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier because this really was like a surprise villain. I think you could probably piece together, if you were familiar with the character of Kang already, you could maybe piece together who it was. But both of the villains for WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, it was this big thing. Who is pulling the strings? And it's characters that we've already ran into throughout the course of the show. So with Agatha, she was in previous episodes, and the power broker was Sharon Carter, obviously. So this was really like a complete surprise to a lot of people. There's a new character that was being introduced right in this last, half hour of the show. And so that, I think that paid off in a way that didn't upset people in the same way that the Sharon Carter and the Agatha reveals did, because it literally was like this mysterious figure behind the scenes the whole time. And
that's what's smart about it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I mean, it also set up the fact that this was a version of that character, and it tied into the overall theme of there are different versions and there are different sides of each character. This was a version of Kang. We'll never see him again, but we'll see a different side of that character. So I thought it kind of looped back into the overall, repeated theme of the show of the duplicity of everything. So I thought that was great.
I agree. And I think that's why I'm glad that it didn't end up being like, okay, here's Kang, or whatever, the one who remains, or whatever his name is, and so here he is. Now let's fight him, and like he's shooting energy blasts. Right. That would have felt awful because I don't know him, right? So like that's why the fighting between Loki and Sylvie had to happen that way. And then you also get like some tense moments between Mobius and Renslayer, because like that, I mean, that's a B story or maybe even a C story at that point, but it at least provides a little bit of that like action climax that you might want, even though it's really not action packed. And so, I mean, there's certainly stuff going on, but I mean, it could have devolved into, oh no, it's Kang and he's shooting stuff at us and we have to fight him.
How did you find me here? Right.
Exactly. But I mean, what I enjoyed about it is, so when phase 1 started, right, it took a long time. It took until Avengers before we really started to see like, okay, maybe Thanos is going to be like the big bad of this whole thing. Right. But then it was like even Age of Ultron before we started to see like, oh, and it's okay, it's Infinity Stones and it's like this whole thing, and like it starts to unfold. In this new like saga, we're starting to see the seeds of what they're planning, which I'm assuming is a big multiversal war and Kang and whatever else. Kang may end up being the next Thanos, like the big bad. I don't know. Yeah. But it's cool that they're planting that now rather than, okay, let's wait another, 6 movies before we start hinting at what's to come, or the next Avengers movie will tell us what the next threat's going to be. Right. It's like, no, do it now. Okay. In between, because I almost feel like these Disney Plus shows are like in between sagas. Like I almost don't feel like they are the next saga. They're like a bridge in a way. And so it's cool that the bridge is already telling us what the next saga is going to be. And I don't know.
It gave it weight in a way that maybe the other two didn't have. Particularly WandaVision, but
yes, exactly. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the next thing isn't multiversal war. Maybe that's just the means to get Spider-Man out, and then they're just gonna new thing, Galactus. But who knows? Like
Doctor Doom.
It's Doctor Doom this time, and they're clearly setting up, whatever Dark Avengers or whatever. I'm just going to call them the Injustice Society, and they're the little Darth Vader head in the swamp. But like that's Yeah, I just think it's smart to go ahead and start setting that up, because that's the question on everybody's mind going in is, okay, well, what are you going to do now that Thanos is gone? Like, what's the next thing?
Right.
And they're not waiting to tell us.
Well, and does this count as the first Fox character that we've seen come in the
It
MCU?
does. It does indeed.
Oh, is Kang a Fox? Is Kang a Fox character?
Yeah. He's typically a Fantastic Four character. So, yeah.
So he was on by
I'm
Fox.
curious how he ties into Ant-Man.
Yeah, that seems like a weird place
Bit of
to
an
put
odd
him.
choice, but
Yeah.
especially after seeing this, I'm curious how that all would tie in. But
Well, it says that the quantum realm is closely tied. Closely tied to the multiverse. So I think that the quantum realm is going to remain to be the MCU's like way for the Avengers to do time stuff in a lab.
yeah.
Sure.
Well, and I see this like carrying through Doctor Strange. I see it carrying through Spider-Man and obviously now Ant-Man. So, and who knows whether it will continue in things that we haven't, really thought about yet. But so it did set up quite a bit, and it really does add, weight to these things that I kind of agree with Dustin that are, just, you could look at them as supplementary material in a way, but it's cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on the love story between Loki and Sylvie. This was a story thread that I was not sure about when it first started. And by the time it was done, I thought it was brilliant. I don't know if y'all agree or not, but like it's obviously we have a knee-jerk reaction to like, oh, but wait, but that's you. And then the idea that yes, it's an allegory for Loki learning to love himself, to accept himself, essentially to get in touch with himself. And the only way that a character like him is capable of that sort of introspection is if he is romantically or at least emotionally interested in another person who is basically just him. Like only that could cause a narcissist like Loki to actually be introspective. And how they accomplished that, I thought it was really interesting, and I was with it. In the beginning, I was like, "Don't do this," and then by the end of it, I was like, "Do this." So I was on board.
I never saw it as like a lofty like metaphor for introspection or whatever. I thought like when it started, I was on board from frame one, because I was like, this is just hilarious. Like of all the people that Loki's going to fall in love with, of course it's himself. Like that's hilarious to me. And so as it goes along, like I'm just on board just because I think it's funny. And
they were adorable
and I think,
too. I was like,
sure,
y'all are great.
But it's just a hilarious little like, I don't know, idea that Loki would not fall for anyone but himself.
Right.
Yeah. Completely agree.
So Kate Herron is not, speaking of where it goes, Kate Herron is not coming back for season 2. And so again, I was going to say this earlier. So I thought I remember texting this to you guys, and because I had been hearing at the time, like multiple people at the same time told me like, season 1 and 2 were actually produced at the same time. They shot 12 episodes. They put out 6 for season 1. So season 2 is already in the can. And so that caused me to go like, oh my God, maybe they're going to drop season 2 a lot earlier than we think, blah, blah, blah. But this article from Deadline makes me think that they're not going to do that, because the article is about Kate Herron not coming back for season 2. And she says, I'm not returning. I always planned to be just on for this. And to be honest, season 2 wasn't in that's something that just came out, and I'm so excited. So it's like, sound like you're about to say there were no plans for a second season when the show was created. So that would mean probably not 2 seasons produced at once. So, or you won't told everything, but you're the director of the series. I'm sure you were told everything there was to know.
Well, that makes me think that the series, I mean, I don't think it was as late as its premiere, but at some point, somebody in a suit said, and maybe a baseball cap, said, "Hey, we're doing a second season of this.
Yeah.
So tack on a couple scenes of like, oh, I'm mad. I'm going to run to Mobius." And then he runs over there. "Who are you?" And it's like, okay, there you go. That's it. And so it's just like, maybe that was tacked on. Like maybe the idea was she plunges the knife into his chest. The multiverse expands and that's it. Maybe that was the series.
Yeah.
That would have been insane. But I think because there was a delay in filming this was not done filming when the pandemic hit. So there was a gap and then they had to finish it, I think in like January and February or something like that, maybe to March. And so it could have been like a lot of shows. What a lot of people did during that time was, all right, well, let's go ahead and get post started. Let's try and keep production going. And it could have been that in the editing of the series and everything that the suits were talking about, they're like, we've got something here. Like what if we did? And there's just a lot more time to fuck with it and see if, we want to do more with this,
I'm so glad it didn't end with that shot of the timelines branching.
Yeah.
Because that really could have meant anything if you had closed with credits on that.
Sure.
Like I'm so glad that they showed at least in a way the effects of that.
Yeah.
And it really left you on like almost like a Twilight Zone-esque
and it's immediate.
cliffhanger.
It's not like
absolutely.
It's not like the next things you'd see they could just ignore it like when The Walking Dead had what's his name under the dumpster and then we didn't find out what happened to him for like 4 weeks. It was like
Glenn.
Glenn. I don't want that. I don't want that version of that here where it's like, oh,
No
it's a
one wants
multiverse,
that.
and then for like 2 years we're like, none of these things are dealing with the multiverse. Did it happen?
Right.
And because now everyone needs time to like write something about it. It's right away.
Yeah.
He goes over here, talks to Owen Wilson. Oh shit, no one knows me. Where am I?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you spent the whole series with these characters learning to respect one another. It was almost like a buddy cop movie in a way. And then by the end of the series, he doesn't know who he is.
Yeah.
So that whole relationship is thrown into question. So it felt it on a personal level too, which was, I thought that was a great scene to end it on.
Yeah, and you're right, John. It's two things. One, it's that Twilight Zone-y ending that I love, and two, you can't really end on the shot of the multiverse expanding and call it a day because remember the show's called Loki, so you do kind of have to end it with Loki, and so no matter what, it would be like if The Sopranos didn't end with Tony. It has to end with who your main character is, or else it isn't complete. And this, while it isn't complete because there's a season 2 coming, season 1 does at least end with Loki's face. And we get to see how does the journey he's been on, how does that affect him? And then also, now that there's this twist, this Twilight Zone twist, what is he thinking about that? And so you're right, it calls into question the relationships that he's already made. And it also, I think, calls into question, like, so how does Loki remember this? Like, I guess he's outside of time when this happened, and so he's kind of displaced in a way. But it really opens up a lot of possibility for the next season, and again, regardless of where it fits, maybe this will premiere after Quantumania, or maybe this will premiere after whatever. Who knows? It almost is irrelevant because there's enough here to go on, and they can do like a season of TVA shenanigans that feel essentially, because the TVA exists outside of time, it can exist anywhere. It can be released any time that Marvel wants it to be released, and it still kind of work. But yeah, there's enough questions of its own merit without the question of like, how does this affect the MCU at large, that they could release this whenever.
I would think that wherever Loki is now is an alternate timeline versus his current timeline that has now been changed by the thing, because now there's God knows how many versions of time. Who even knows where the branch starts? Yeah, it's weird. There's a now that I'm thinking about, there's like some Umbrella Academy vibes with the TVA, with the agency that is just somewhere that deals with all of time and the proper flow of time. And but
bear in mind, she put him back in the TVA before she plunged the knife into Jonathan Major's chest. So the implication is she sends him back to the exact TVA that they came from. And now things changed. Yeah. And so the implication, at least to me, is not that he's in another strand of the multiverse, but he's in his own strand that is now different.
That's how I took it too. Because I think also too, don't the temp pads only take you forward and backward through time?
Yeah, it as far as we know, it does not take you to other timelines or to other, spots in the multiverse.
Right.
Well, poop.
I mean, I think it could be something that you could easily smudge if you could. They decide that he is in a different time. It's never clear, but that's the way I read it as well.
We got new Tim pads that can take us sideways.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
The DeLorean flies now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't it great? Just in time for this plot.
Yep.
I will say too how much I love that episode with all the Lokis at the end of time.
Yeah, that was fun.
With the
that
crocodile
so
Loki
weird.
and the classic Loki, and that was a level of weirdness that I was maybe anticipating from the show, but it completely delivered on it.
Yeah,
and it fit within the tone of the overall show as well. It was so fucking strange, but I loved every minute of it.
Something that I love that they only did, I think, twice was, unless there's more and I just missed it. So I think it was the first episode, they revealed that Loki was DB Cooper.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's like a historical thing. And then the second thing is when they were I think they were looking for Eliath, like they were going to go find Eliath, and he was like attacking this battleship, which is from the Philadelphia experiment, which is a longstanding conspiracy theory.
Really?
And so the idea that the TVA or Loki or whatever is sort of behind the Philadelphia experiment is hilarious. And anyway, I love like that level of weirdness, which is almost like, it takes place in our world.
Right. Even
though, I mean, obviously the MCU is this weird heightened, not reality, but like, picking a couple of things like DB Cooper and that, and like throwing them in there, like, oh yeah, that happened here too, is kind of cool. So I love that too.
I also just love the idea that that the whole DB Cooper thing was just him, Heimdall, and Thor fucking around and being super reckless with the Rainbow Bridge.
Right. Yep.
We're just going to shoot the bridge in the middle of the sky and hope that we don't hit any birds or satellites.
Right.
I halfway thought we were going to have a Heimdall cameo.
Yeah.
We didn't.
I wish.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
And it's also too, because I remember when the first Thor was about to be released, and that was like a big risk at the time because it was so different. It wasn't Iron. It wasn't a guy who wore a cool suit that fired lasers. It was like, here's this guy with a magic hammer, and there's a rainbow bridge, and he has long hair, and his brother, is the god of mischief, and all.
His Earth is flat.
It's just like a testament to like the staying power of the MCU, and also to how now they can get really weird with stuff because the audience trusts them. So I never would have imagined a time where you could have a Loki that's an alligator, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
I think it's really cool that they're starting to explore the weirder, more obscure aspects of that, and the audience is accepting it, which is really cool.
The MCU has pushed that line gradually over time.
Yeah.
Like I think Guardians of the Galaxy pushed it, maybe the furthest, but like you do have moments of like, Anthony the giant ant in a bathtub in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and like, moments like that. That's like, this is legit the goofiest thing ever. But like it's literally just Kevin Feige going, just push it a little bit more.
Right.
I'm just gonna push it a little bit more. Gonna push it a little bit more. And now Loki's an alligator, and Frog's Thor's a frog. Whatever.
Right. Exactly.
But much appreciated.
Yeah, exactly.
I love the weirdness.
Oh yeah, I definitely think they should keep going with that. That's gonna wrap up the Loki discussion then. So and thanks for y'all for talking to me about it, and hope everyone enjoyed it. Cool. Well, hell, I'll say this now because we'll record it in just a second. But so next episode is us talking about Quiet Place 2 a little bit more. If you didn't get enough of that when we reviewed it initially, so. Stay tuned for that. Bye, everybody.
Yeah. Bye.